all.
but it's always fun to get out there. But it's great to meet you.
You too.
I want to begin our conversation before we get into your world of podcasting and what you do and what drives you by asking 4 years ago, this pandemic really was gripping all of us and we were figuring it out, how it was
Yeah.
going to play out. Now that we're kind of in this quote unquote post-pandemic era, how did you make it through it? How did it change you?
Yeah. A loaded question for sure. I
Off the ground and running.
Oh my God, right. It's messy. So like everybody else, had no idea really what was going on, what was happening, trying to make sense of everything. At the time, I was part-time homeschooling my children. So it kind of made the decision easier to just completely homeschool them anyway, which was what that was kind of where they were going. I had chosen to sort of part-time homeschool because I have one on the spectrum. I have one that has dysgraphia. And so there were some challenges there. So it was just easier for us to kind of do things on our own pace. And so the pandemic kind of solidified, okay, now we are going to do this completely. And so that was sort of a decision that I didn't have to struggle with. It was sort of made for me and turned out to be the best thing that we ever did. In the meantime, uh, my husband had thought it might be a good idea that we leave California. And so he works for a fire department. We thought, oh, he could probably transfer wherever we're going to go. Okay, we'll see if we can do that. So we made the move to Colorado. And just something, he's always loved Colorado. It was something that was just, this sounds like a good idea. So in the middle of the pandemic, we moved to Colorado. I know absolutely nobody up there. He is still now working in California because we haven't been able to make a complete transfer. I've never lived in snow in my entire life. I have no idea what winterizing basements are, winterizing pipes, winterizing sinks. No idea. I don't know how to drive in snow. I mean, yeah, we have mountains here in California. We drive up to the snow, but then we come back down. Like it's
Yeah.
not, it's not the same.
Yeah.
Living in snow, like it just was a huge shock to me. And then again, having to pretty much do it on my own because he was still back in California with my three children. That was not fun. If I never see snow again, I will be okay. I
I
love
would
the
love to
idea
say
of
that.
it. It's just a whole other way of life. And
Yeah.
people do it all the time. And my hat's off to them. Especially when you don't know anything about it.
Hmm.
And, we had a really nice neighbor. They were like, okay, and just make sure you drain your sprinklers. I'm sorry, what? Do what now? Drain sprinklers? That doesn't compute. Have no
Yeah.
idea what that means. Sprinklers in California are on all year round, so I don't know what you're talking
Yep.
about.
Yep.
So I had to learn that, which brought on quite a big amount of stress and just figuring out that I don't think this is for us. I don't think I can do this. So I then had a heart attack, massive heart attack after shoveling snow, by the way. So I
Oh
hate snow.
no. Oh, you're a trauma-induced snow. No. Wow.
No snow.
No.
And so that happened. And then we moved back to California, and that was that with the pandemic. So,
Wow. So I have a son that's on the spectrum, so I understand he's got an extra long arm on his 15th chromosome, so he's had developmental delays. So it was an interesting time when the pandemic began to kind of because he loves school and he loved baseball, and that was spring training time. So, but it's funny. I don't even know if the word funny is it, but it's interesting. I've always felt like the children learned an extra level of resilience by living through that. And for instance, the other day, we were going to go to a baseball game and it was a minor league team here. And we went to the field and it was nothing was on, no one was around. There was some fans walking up. And apparently we had storms the past couple nights, so they couldn't play there. And his response to it was amazing. He just, it was like, all right. I mean, he was disappointed, but it wasn't that big of a deal. And I've noticed that, with the pandemic, everything shut down. The snow globe was turned upside down. Sorry, I said
yeah.
snow, and
Yeah.
shaken violently,
Yeah.
shaken violently. And
Yeah.
it's like everything was altered. And I wondered when we came out what level of resilience the youth and their brains would have, because as adults we had more decades on the planet, we have more experience, the parlance of our times was not wearing masks and thinking about a global pandemic. But for these kids,
Right.
that was a part of their thing. So I think,
Right.
especially with him being on the spectrum, and there's things that are just different with the way their brains work, and it was just
Definitely.
good to see that there was a level of resiliency. So it's a
That's
good
so
thing.
great.
Yeah,
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 yeah. It's they see my daughter has taught me so much in the way that she sees the world.
hmm,
And, here I thought I was going to be the one to impart whatever wisdom I thought I had. And it's been the complete opposite. And just in the way that she sees people, in the way that she looks at a situation, and it's sort of different for her, and things don't make sense, but she makes them make sense. And she has taught me so much about that. It's absolutely incredible. And to say anything other than they just think differently is that's all it is, and they process differently, and but that their mind, it's beautiful, it really truly is, and to learn from that is just it. I'm just in awe a lot of the times.
yeah. It is. It's really it's another side of reality that I never thought that I would see, and it is pretty glorious. I always find him to be my hero for as hard as they have to work. There's regular things that people just grasp as a part of their
Yep.
nature, nurture, biological standpoint, but
Yes.
with these kids that are neurotypical, there's or non-neurotypical, I should say. There's so many things that they have to really try and strive and
Hmm.
get towards. So, um, let me ask you this. If
Sure.
I put you in front of a bunch of third graders at career day right now, and one of the kids said, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, homeschooling mom. We
Hmm.
get into trouble. We do lots of things outside. We do lots of, different things. Sometimes we don't do it at all. Sometimes it's just a bad day and we don't. So that would be my first job, which I absolutely adore and love. And I think it's been very successful. I'm also a podcaster.
Yeah,
I absolutely adore and just love my podcast, and recently have become a wellness coach specifically to help families that have been newly diagnosed with type 1 diabetes and to involve the family with that. My passion, when I was diagnosed at 15, my family was basically given a brochure and said, contact a dietitian and off you go. Here's your
yeah,
insulin. And
yeah,
that's all they were given. And I think nowadays it might be a little better. You get support groups, but the problem is you're not including the family and how it affects every single person in that family. My children know how to test my blood sugar if I unfortunately pass out or can't do it myself. It's a whole involvement of family. And I think to get grandparents involved, aunts and uncles, best friends, neighbors, you have to know what to do with it
yeah,
because it's not type 2. And so frequently we get lumped in with that. And it's completely different. And so to help these families come in, especially the ones with young children who these kids don't understand. I mean, I was 15, so I had 15 years of sort of living on the planet and figuring stuff out. But as a teenager, I will tell you, there is no way I was going to do what they were telling me. I was so rebellious. Are you
yeah,
kidding? Forget it. And I just feel like those kids need to be encircled and supported, and families need to know how to do that. So
yeah. My
that's
dad was
what I do.
diabetic, and there was so many times I saw that needle, and he'd have to inject himself. It was a regular thing. So I saw it firsthand, and I get it for sure. Um,
Yeah.
so let me ask you this. What did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream to grow up and become?
Uh, um, you know, kind of ups and downs, right? I think I always wanted to serve somehow. And for when I was really little, I can remember I always wanted to go into the military in some capacity. And when I got into high school and you start meeting with counselors and things like that, and of course, newly diagnosed type 1, at that point, oh, I'm sorry, military is not an option for you. And I was just crushed. I was
Yeah,
left with nothing. That was all I had ever thought about.
yeah,
My dad had even said, I'll write a letter. They don't have to be responsible for you. I mean, it was this whole thing. And they were just like, you're just not going to make it through. So I still had this mindset to want to help people. So that transitioned in, my father was a police officer and my stepmom was a 911 dispatcher. And
okay,
she would take me to work with her downtown LA. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever. Like she would literally just work magic behind these computers and help police officers and help people. And it was just, I just thought it was so magical. So I did that in my early career for many,
wow,
many years, both police and fire. And in my own way, felt like I helped people through their immediate crisis, their immediate trauma. A lot of times we didn't get to hear how the story ended. I was on to the next crisis. And so that takes a toll on you. But that was it was just amazing to be able to do that.
So as a family for a couple of years there, and I can't do it anymore because I don't watch TV like that. We were watching that show 911 and Jennifer Love Hewitt was all right. So my stepdaughter kind of in the back of her brain is thinking about doing that still. She
Yeah.
was really into that 911 dispatch thing, but man, that's too heavy for me. Like I've spent so many years going through the news and all of that. Like I just it's a lot.
Well, and as you notice, I say my previous career because after you have children, there's no way I could process that.
Oh,
There's no way I
uh-huh.
can deal with it. It's very, and I don't want to say before I was desensitized, but there is a way that you can compartmentalize to get through those terrible,
Yeah.
terrible trauma-induced calls that you can keep from affecting you. But once you have children, there, no way.
Yeah,
No
bets
way.
off. All bets
Yeah.
off. So, who's been a hero for you in your life? Who's been an inspiration?
Um, you know, dad, stepmom, mom, obviously. They've been very influential in my life. But I like to say now that a lot of people who are out there speaking against normal medical convention and taking a different approach and actually having the courage to stand up, Dr. Jordan Peterson, Dr. Mike Larman, we've got Dr. Austin Lake. There's all of these people out here. Huberman. I think he's one of the greatest. They're speaking different language. And it seems like the conventional medical system always wants to shut them down, but their words and what they're doing is so important. And we need to be paying attention to that, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, I get it. I totally think there's so many ways that even from the Native American standpoint of herbalists and things like that, there's so many things, unfortunately, in our capitalistic driven society that's squeezed out because it simply won't make the billionaires more money. It's wild.
Yeah, it really
So
is. It
it's
really is.
unfortunate.
Well, after I had my massive heart attack, they put me on the standard American cocktail of a
Hmm.
statin, low blood pressure medicine, and a baby aspirin.
Yep.
But here's the thing. I had neither. I didn't have high blood pressure and I didn't have high cholesterol. That's not what my heart attack was from. But that was the standard American cocktail they gave.
Yep.
So after taking that medicine, it actually made me more sick than I was prior to my heart attack. So I went down these deep rabbit holes of what is happening, what's going on, and slowly started to piecemeal myself together to try to heal in the right way.
Yep.
A completely different effect than if I had stayed on those medications. And it just bothers me so much that that's the answer. You know, what do they say? A pill for an ill, and that we just have to be doing it differently. Now, I have always said, always, 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 we have, bar none, the best crisis emergency medicine anywhere. Obviously, had the heart attack, they saved my life, rushed me to the cat. Like, that's huge. But the maintenance of medicine, we are missing a huge component of helping people self advocate for themselves. We're missing a huge component of bringing in the naturalists, the herbalists, the functional medicine, and fusing that together with what we know as Western medicine, because I think they should be symbiotic. They should be
Yeah,
working together.
for
They're
sure.
not. They're
Yeah.
not.
So did you see the light? What happened when you had to?
No, so actually, and there's a lot that goes into this, but I actually thought I was having a panic attack, like a huge anxiety attack. And my oldest, who's almost 20 now, at the time, she said, I think you should. And this was a Sunday. I had shoveled snow on Friday. This was a Sunday. And I just had like it was like muscle pain, but it's not chest pain. I could breathe just fine. It was just kind of this weird. I had no chin pain, no jaw pain, no back pain, nothing like that. She says, Mom, why don't you just go get checked? I'd rather you go now and I can watch the other two than have the fire department come through the doors because you're passed out on the bathroom floor. She ultimately saved my life because that made me drive myself to the hospital. Drive myself to the hospital. I get there. This, I think he was a newer, nurse or somebody that came out, did the EKG, and he went white, mouth dropped. And having an EMT background with being a 911 dispatcher and everything, I sort of looked over and the loops were going under. And he looks right at me. He goes, Ma'am, you're having a massive heart attack. Had no idea, didn't feel anything. All of a sudden, I have like 9 people ascend on me into the thing and they rushed me away. Um, unbelievably surreal, to say the
Yeah.
least. I'm awake the whole time. In fact, the nurse that was with me, she, because I had all my stuff on my chest, she picks up my phone and like takes a picture of what they had done on the screen just so I could have it for later. I mean, just
Wow.
incredible. Yeah.
So you were like a biological feat right there, so to
Yeah.
speak. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's wild.
So,
It's wild when you mention panic attack. I saw a preview a little while back. There's a British singer named Robbie Williams, and they were doing a biography on him, and the show starts with him coming up onto the stage, and there's all these people, and then they cut to him getting interviewed, and he was having a panic attack when the show started.
wow.
So he had taken like ecstasy and something like that, and like it was one of the most intense openings of anything. So
That's
he was
crazy.
in the front of like Wembley Stadium, and he was having a panic attack, and he
Wow.
had to hide it so he wouldn't totally freak all of them out, and
Wow.
But anyways, it's
Yeah.
like it's weird how those things can kind of happen where people just don't feel things, but it's happening. It's
Yeah.
weird,
I
really
did, like I
weird.
said, I drove myself to the hospital. I had no idea.
Wow.
And that goes back to first, let me say the heart attack was a combination of unfortunately, I struggled with uncontrolled blood sugars for a lot of my life because I was so rebellious and I didn't take my type 1 very seriously.
Yeah.
Coupled with that, coupled with the high stress and the high elevation of Colorado Springs. So it was like all of this
Wow.
stuff mixed together that
Yeah.
was a perfect cocktail for that. But I will say with women, there has been studies and that's out there, women don't feel it and they don't understand that it's actually a cumulative thing that starts to happen even when we're young women, and your statistics go up if you've done certain things, like if you've tried smoking or e-cigarettes, that goes up. Couple that with birth control, you're starting to build this cumulative risk that you're going to have some sort of cardiac event. Then you get into pregnancy, if you've had any preeclampsia, if you've had any high blood pressure there, if you have a premature baby, these things start to make your cardiovascular events go climb higher and higher. Nobody's telling women this.
Wow.
Nobody's telling them it's a cumulative effect. And then to top it all off, you become a mom, you're exhausted, you've got all this stuff going on, and you stop taking care of yourself. And so you have to make the time for the self-care to, offset that cumulative build risk that you're building. So it's just a whole combination of it. But women especially, and not to take anything away from men, but because we're always the one of we're fine, there's nothing, when nothing's going on, I'm, slap a band-aid on it, whatever, and move on because we're trying to take care of other people, we're missing what we need to be doing for ourselves.
And statistically, men usually are the ones that have it, and we have a shorter lifespan, and there tends to be all those stories of magnanimous heart attacks with men, and you don't hear that with women that much. It's just
Well,
not
so men specifically is more of the widowmaker,
right.
and it's a congenital thing that they have. But women, it's 1 in 3. 1 in 3 women will
Oh,
suffer a heart
wow.
attack.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was that prevalent. That's
Yep.
interesting.
Yep. One in
S-
three.
So let me ask you this, as a podcaster, who would be a dream guest? You could have anybody on your
Oh,
show in the whole world.
gosh. Um, well, I mean, who's not going to say Rogan, right? I mean, look what he's done.
Yeah.
But I'd love Huberman. I'd love to just pick his brain. I'd love to pick Jordan Peterson's brain.
Yeah.
I love they operate on a higher frequency level that I just aspire to get to. And I think they would be really cool. But I mean, who wouldn't say Rogan, right?
Yeah,
As a
absolutely.
podcaster.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So what's your motivation every day to do the work that you do? To do homeschooling, to do your job, to be a podcaster? What is the fuel in your tank for all of that?
Yeah. So that's a two-part answer. I'm really big on separating motivation and self-discipline because motivation only gets you so far. You can be motivated and that motivation will fizzle out. It's really tracking your habits and having self-discipline. You really want to make sure you understand your reasons why you're doing it. Obviously, number one for me is my family, and that is going to make me get to the gym, do what I need to do to be taking care of myself every day. But you have to instill the habits in order to accomplish that. Because if you just say, oh, yeah, I'm motivated to go to the gym, in a month, you may not be motivated. You may not, it may be like, oh, I can have a cheat day. Look how far I've done. But the discipline, the tracking of the habits, the things that you have put concrete in place that are non negotiable will get you to finish what you're trying to accomplish.
So at the end of the day, I'm curious, what are you the proudest of? Everything that you've done and evolved and overcome near death, all of these things that you are now,
You
What
put
do
it
you
like that.
well, or you overcame a cataclysmic event that could have been bad.
Yeah.
What are you the proudest of?
Um, and I'm sure a lot of women say this, but it's definitely being a mom. It's definitely being a mom. That is the most fulfilling thing that I've ever done in my entire life. It is the most rewarding thing I've ever done in my entire life. I am a different person because of my children. Like I said earlier, I learn from them every day. They show me the world through their eyes, and that's just something I could never do on my own, ever.
So we're obviously in this fraternity here of doing a podcast in real time and meta time, but I'm going to ask you, why do you love podcasting? Why do you like
Ah,
being a host? What's the best part?
Gosh, I love the mic. I absolutely love the mic. There's something very empowering to just sit behind the mic and I get to talk, right? After my heart attack, it was suggested that I like have a journal and get out my feelings. And I have said I don't actually physically like the physical act of writing. I don't like to write. I can write, but the physical act of sitting down and actually journaling, I don't have time for that. I don't want to do that. But I can talk.
Yeah.
And I love to meet people and I want to hear their messy stories because, again, I'm this little sponge and I just want to soak up everything that I can possibly learn. And so, these people that I've met that just have the messiest stories that you could possibly imagine and how they have found their strength through that mess, I want to know that. I want to know how you did that. I want to learn from that because it's inspiring. I
Yeah.
mean, it's absolutely, and people are inspired. They're amazing.
Yeah. This is really kind of a modern version of therapy, podcasting is.
It
You
is.
know what I'm
It
saying?
is.
Because it
Yeah.
and to me, I've been doing this since 2011. It started out with jazz radio and has branched out
Yeah,
to
that's
people all over the world.
incredible.
And the thing is that it turned into this hip thing during COVID times.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, 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 wait. This is in popular culture. It's in mass media. It's in movies. It's in TVs. I'm like, wait, hold on. How did this happen? And it really is. It's and coming from our generation, you know, the mouthpiece when we grew up was like three, four major stations,
Yeah.
maybe a little bit of cable TV,
Yeah.
and it was all kind of monopolized by capitalistic ventures. And this is kind of like an egalitarian, democratized way of all of us saying, if you have a good message, you're going to get people that are going to tune in. But if
Yep.
you don't, they're not, and it's not
Right.
based on anything other than we're all humans trying to grab onto something that makes sense.
Well, and I definitely view it as the last frontier. It's the least regulated. Knock on wood, it stays that way.
Yeah,
Anybody can come with any idea whether we agree with it or not, and they can share that here. And that's truly what makes podcasting. And hats off to the OGs like yourself who kind of paved the way because it is an important piece. It
yeah,
is an important and podcast listening is up exponentially.
crazy.
You know, way more than talk radio, way like this is where it's at. So I just continue to hope and pray that they do not start to regulate it. They don't start shutting people down because this is why it's so popular.
I
People
know,
get to say what they want.
I know, and we should. So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, listeners, everyone around you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I'd like to say that I'm the most controlled, and I like to say that I, have it all together. But honestly, I'm the messiest person. Hence, everything's messy.
It's modern living. It really is. And I mean, it's like I just don't remember things growing up. I mean, because just, everything, blended families, blended this. There's an increased amount of disabilities with the kids that are coming into the world these days. There's an infinite amount of choices. You can find information on anything everywhere
Anything.
all the
Yep.
time. It's like we're
Yep.
just oversaturated. And our
Yes. Yes.
sensory, like I have to do that with Miles, my son. I have to get to a point, and I've learned as I've gotten older or like we have to get out of oversensitized situations.
Yeah.
But I think we could all benefit from
All of
that
us.
sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I listened to one of your other guests and I think she said she enjoyed the slowdown of the pandemic. And
Yes.
that's real. That's real because and I think we sort of all needed a reset.
Yep.
I think things are kind of getting back to where they were, but I'm hoping people will remember that downtime and to make time for it because it really is important, I think. So
So we got remember the Alamo, and then we have remember the pandemic, right? So if anyone wants to tune in, they want to reach out, learn more about the good work you're doing, how do they do it?
Yeah, so it's Everything's Messy podcast. Also, the website is Everything's Messy. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, X. threads all under Everything's Messy. So yeah, look me up, send me, questions, send me your mess. I'd love to hear about what you're going through and what you're doing. And yeah, just keep it messy.
So your asterisk below Everything's Messy should be an asterisk and say, but no snow. Please
Yeah.
no snow.
No snow.
Leave it out. Keep it in Kansas City.
No
Great.
snow.
All
Yeah,
right.
no snow.
Hey, this has been great. Great to meet you. Keep
Yeah,
doing the
you
great
too.
work. Thank you very
Thank you.
much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for paving the way.
Oh, yeah, I love it. Absolutely. Thank you to you too. Take
Yeah,
care.
thanks, you too.
Best of luck.